flashing cameras outside a police station in the dead of night, stock market charts just like bleeding red across trading floor screens, and a global fandom holding its collective breath. The teasers dropped. The fandom went silent. And in an instant, the entire K-pop world was turned completely upside down.
Oh, absolutely. It was just a total shock to the system.
Right. I mean, we are talking about police raids, a staggering $140 million fraud allegation, and the potential arrest of the billionaire mastermind behind the biggest group in history. Welcome to Starscope K Report. Join us as we ride the Hallyu wave, uncovering the biggest K-pop comebacks, shocking industry controversies, and, well, major K-drama updates.
Yeah, from internet-breaking rumors to historic chart milestones, we dive deep into the world of Korean entertainment.
Exactly. And today, our mission is to unpack the headline that is currently sending shockwaves through, like, every corner of the internet. The end of BTS. Why their billionaire founder is facing arrest.
It is the kind of headline that doesn't just shake an industry, you know? It creates a seismic event across global pop culture. And honestly, the financial mechanics underneath it are just fascinating.
They really are. And hey, if you love staying updated on your favorites, make sure you're subscribed to Starscope K Report, because we got even bigger scoops ahead.
Okay, let's unpack this. Picture the scene, all right?
Oh.
It's late at night, 11:48 p.m. to be exact.
So specific.
Right. Chairman Bang Si-hyuk, the 52-year-old music mogul and the absolute mastermind behind BTS, is walking out of the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency's Financial Crime Investigation Unit.
Yeah.
This is in the Mapu district. And he is completely surrounded by bodyguards.
Yeah, after what? Like a massive interrogation.
Exactly. He's just endured 13 grueling hours of police questioning. He declines to answer reporters' questions, gets into a waiting car, and just vanishes into the night. Earlier that morning, the Seoul headquarters of HYBE in Yongsan was completely raided by police. Like, K-nets and international stands alike just watched this absolute meltdown across social media. I mean, the visual of that midnight exit is incredibly striking.
Right.
But to understand why he was in that room for 13 hours, we have to look at the massive legal machinery moving against him.
Right. What are they actually looking for?
Well, Bang is officially being investigated as a suspect on charges of violating the Capital Markets Act. They're looking into fraudulent transactions. The police have actually officially sought an arrest warrant.
Wow, an actual arrest warrant.
Yeah, and the absolute core of this probe revolves around allegations that he secured $140 million, which is, about 190 billion won. And they're calling these illicit profits.
Wait, I need to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because this all traces back to HYBE's IPO, right?
Yeah.
Their initial public offering back in 2020 when they were still big hit entertainment.
That's exactly right, yes.
Because, I mean, founders making millions or even billions when their company goes public is basically the entire point of an IPO. That happens in Silicon Valley, like, every single day. So what specifically makes his $140 million illegal versus just really, really good timing?
That is exactly the right question to ask. The issue isn't the profit itself. It's the alleged deception used to get it. The formal complaint was filed by Korea's Securities and Futures Commission, or the SFC.
Okay, SFC, got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And their allegation is that in the run-up to that 2020 IPO, Bang and his former executives actively deceived their existing early investors.
Wait, how do you deceive early investors about an IPO?
Well, the SFC claims Bang deliberately gave the impression that the company's IPO plans might be delayed indefinitely.
Okay, so he allegedly spooks the early investors. He makes them think the big payday just isn't happening anytime soon.
Exactly. By creating this narrative of uncertainty, the authorities allege he induced those early investors to sell their shares prematurely. And who did they sell them to?
Let me guess, someone he knows.
Yeah, a special purpose company or an SPC that was tied to a private equity fund directly linked to Bang himself.
Okay, let's clarify that for a second. What exactly is an SPC in this context? Because it sounds like some shadowy shell corporation.
It's essentially a financial pop-up shop. An SPC is a legal entity created for a single, well-defined and narrow purpose. And in this case, that purpose was buying up those specific shares.
Ah, okay. So is that illegal?
It's completely legal to use them, but authorities suspect this specific fund paid Bang massive profits in a side deal, a deal that allegedly promised him a 30% cut of the post-IPO stock sale profits, once the company finally did go public and the stock exploded.
Wow. So the government's narrative is like he convinces the early backers the ship isn't sailing, gets them to sell their tickets to a middleman he secretly controls, and then when the ship actually launches to massive success, He just pockets a 30% cut of their original seats.
That is exactly the narrative presented by the SFC and the police. And I mean, the fallout from this allegation has been incredibly severe.
Yeah, I've seen the headlines.
Right. Bang has been under a travel ban since August of last year. He literally cannot leave the country. And just recently, a Seoul court approved a prosecution request for asset preservation.
Wait, they froze his money.
They did. They issued an order to freeze approximately $106.4 million, which is about 156.8 billion won worth of his HYBE shares. This is basically to ensure that money can be seized if he is ultimately found guilty.
It is just staggering to think about. I mean, the architect of the modern Hallyu wave has a frozen fortune and an arrest warrant hanging over his head. But, why is the government going after him this hard? Usually financial disputes like this take years of quiet boardroom arbitration.
Well, to understand that, you really have to look at the broader political and regulatory environment in South Korea right now. President Lee Jae-myung has pushed a very strict, highly publicized one-strike policy.
Right, like a declared war against stock manipulation.
Exactly. The government is trying to clean up the Korean stock market to attract more foreign investment. And because Bang is such a high-profile, globally recognized figure, well, making an example out of him sends a massive message.
Which explains why it's not just a local police precinct handling this.
Right. It is highly unusual for all major state investigative bodies to simultaneously target a single company. I mean, you have the Seoul police raiding the headquarters.
Yeah.
You have the Financial Supervisory Commission, the top financial regulator, referring the case to prosecutors, which is like their absolute strongest measure. And you have the National Tax Service launching a sweeping probe using their special bureau.
Oh, wow. The special bureau.
Yeah, the one that specifically handles large-scale, premeditated tax evasion.
Yeah.
They're literally all swarming HYBE at once.
And obviously, HYBE isn't just taking this lying down. What is their official defense?
Well, HYBE is strictly denying any wrongdoing. They've released official statements expressing, quote, deep regret over the arrest warrant request.
Naturally.
Yeah, they insist that the 2020 listing was carried out in full, strict compliance with all relevant laws and regulations, and that they were going to thoroughly demonstrate that fact in court.
Okay, so the authorities freeze over $100 million of his assets. For a normal tech company or a manufacturing firm, that's a massive boardroom headache. But HYBE isn't just a tech company. Their core product is, well, human beings.
Right.
How does a frozen bank account in Seoul practically threaten a BTS world tour? Let's talk about the artists, because the anxiety in the fandom right now is palpable. We all know the journey. BTS finally reunited in June after surviving the grueling hiatus of their mandatory military service.
It was a huge moment.
It was everything. A monumental 2026 group comeback and a massive world tour were just announced. And now fans are absolutely terrified. This legal earthquake will derail everything.
And honestly, that terror is economically justified. The stakes for that 2026 comeback cannot be overstated. Prior to their military hiatus, BTS was estimated to generate more than 5.5 trillion won.
Wait.
That's roughly $4 billion in annual economic impact.
$4 billion from one group. I mean, how does a music group even generate that kind of GDP footprint?
You have to think about the entire ecosystem. It's not just album sales and concert tickets. It's the massive influx of international tourism to Seoul.
Oh, right. The flights, the hotels.
Exactly. It's hotel bookings, airline tickets, the manufacturing of merchandise, translation services, the local food vendors outside the stadiums, and, the global export of Korean cosmetics and fashion that the members wear. They generate about 0.2% of South Korea's entire total GDP.
That is insane.
They are not just a pop group, they are a macroeconomic force.
Imagine waiting years for your ultimate bias to finish their military service. You survive the enlistment era, you stream the solo projects, you finally get the reunion, and you get the announcement of a 2026 world tour. And then the agency's stock volatility threatens the entire comeback.
That market volatility is very real, and it reacted instantly to the scandal. When the news of Bang's legal risks hit, combined with very real fears of a potential delisting from the stock exchange, HYBE shares plunged by 24% in a single month.
Wow. A quarter of their value just gone.
Yeah, they dropped down to 246,000 won. It triggered a massive panic sell-off. Major institutional shareholders started aggressively trimming their stakes.
Like who?
Well, the National Pension Service, one of the largest investors in the country, cut their holdings by over 1 percentage point. Netmarble, a major game developer, they offloaded 2.6 percentage points.
That is terrifying. Because when the National Pension Service starts bailing, that sends a massive signal to every retail investor in the country to get out.
Exactly. And the ripple effects hit their corporate partnerships too. For instance, Dunamu, the major crypto exchange operator. They had created a massive joint venture with HYBE called Levels for an NFT business.
Wait, the crypto guys pulled out too? Didn't they just launch that huge digital photocard project, Momentica?
They did,
Hmm.
but they recently shut down Momentica entirely, citing heavy losses. The CEO of Dunamu publicly noted that the NFT craze has cooled, and they're basically starting over from scratch. Yeah, and while they blamed the market, pulling the plug on a highly publicized joint venture during HYBE's biggest legal crisis signals a major cooling of that alliance.
So the foundation is literally shaking. The stock is dropping. The institutional money is running. Partners are pulling back. Are we genuinely looking at the end of the 2026 comeback? Is the ship actually sinking?
Here is where the story takes a fascinating turn. If you look at the underlying business fundamentals, there is a massive disconnect between the stock market panic and reality.
Okay, color me intrigued.
Despite this overwhelming legal turbulence, HYBE's actual business is thriving. They posted a consolidated revenue of 705.6 billion won between April and July. Their operating profit actually rose 29% to 65.9 billion won.
Hold on, let me get this straight. You have police raids, frozen assets, an arrest warrant, and fleeing investors, and their profit went up by 29% in the middle of all this. How is that even mathematically possible?
Because the market eventually realizes the difference between personal liability and corporate machinery. Financial analysts and the local brokerage firms are actually maintaining a buy call on the stock right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The crucial distinction they're making is that Bang's criminal allegations pertain to him personally, not his role as an executive operating the company today.
So even with the founder in an interrogation room for 13 hours, the day-to-day machine of HYBE, like the producers making the beats, the choreographers in the practice rooms, the marketing teams pushing out the concepts, that machine is completely insulated.
Precisely. The market realized the daily operations were shielded from the founder's personal legal battles. Analysts are looking at the impending return of BTS, the massive growth of newer global groups like Cat's Eye, and HYBE's expansion into the Latin American market.
Right, the actual product is still strong.
Because of that, the stock did eventually bounce back. After touching that massive dip, it partially recovered to 283,501. The panic sell-off eased.
That is wild. But, later in the deep dive, we're going to talk about the shocking plot twist in this financial drama that completely changes who the villain of the story actually is. Wait till you hear what Financial Netizens uncovered next.
It's quite the revelation.
It really is. And hey, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a KT update as we track this massive comeback.
So up to this point, the narrative we've discussed, the deceptive founder, the secret stock deals, the panicked investors, that has been the dominant story blasted across mainstream media.
Right, the official SFC line.
But a specialized financial media outlet in Korea called DealSite recently published an incredibly in-depth report. They looked past the SFC press releases, examined the actual contracts, and exposed missing context that just completely flips this scandal on its head.
Yes, because the media painted Bang Si-hyuk as this greedy insider, like running off with the treasure chest while the investors drowned. Let's walk through what DealSite actually found, starting with the very first accusation, the IPO uncertainty.
Right. The initial media reports heavily pushed the idea that Bang explicitly lied to investors, telling them there were no IPO plans at all. But DealSite points out that in 2019, an IPO was genuinely, objectively uncertain
Why?
because of BTS's impending military enlistment.
Which makes total sense to anyone who actually follows K-pop. I mean, even the biggest visual or the golden matinee has to serve. The market knew a massive multi-year hiatus was coming. Saying the IPO might be delayed wasn't a malicious lie, it was just a realistic assessment of an enlistment cliff.
Exactly. It was prudent risk management. But the second major revelation is even more damning for the regulators. It involves the designated auditor.
Right. The media kept calling the appointment of a designated auditor the absolute smoking gun. What even is a designated auditor and why does it matter here?
A designated auditor is essentially a mandatory independent referee assigned to a company right before they go public, just to ensure their books are perfectly clean. The SFC claimed that Bang secretly requested this auditor, proving he was planning the IPO behind the investors' backs.
And what did DealSite find?
DealSite uncovered a massive omission. The request for that auditor was actually initiated at the suggestion of the existing financial investors themselves.
Are you kidding me? The SFC just left that out of their public announcement.
Apparently so.
It wasn't a secret move made by Bang in the shadows. It was literally requested by the very people he allegedly deceived. That completely destroys this secret plot narrative. But the most mind-blowing part of this report is the money side of things. We need to talk about the put option. Break this down for us.
This is the centerpiece of the entire deal site report. The SFC heavily emphasized the clause where Bang would receive 30% of post-IPO profits, framing it as pure greed. What they completely omitted was the massive downside risk he took on to get that percentage.
The downside risk.
Yeah, Bang signed a put option.
Yeah.
In financial terms, this meant that if the IPO failed or the stock crashed, Bang would be personally liable to buy back the shares from the early investors.
Okay, so let me put this in normal terms. Instead of a standard investment, it's like Bang sold them a house, but signed a contract promising that if the housing market crashed, he would buy the house back from them at the original price out of his own pocket. He basically became their human safety net.
That is a perfect analogy. He would have faced hundreds of billions of won in personal losses to protect the early investors' capital. Financial industry insiders note this was a standard risk-sharing deal.
Right.
Because he shielded the investors entirely from the downside risk, like the military enlistment risk. He was entitled to a larger share of the upside if they succeeded.
They painted him as a villain stealing profits, but left out the part where he personally guaranteed the investors' money if the whole thing went belly up. And, I mean, he didn't just pocket the cash and run, right?
No, he really didn't. Furthermore, DealSite noted that multiple top-tier law firms vetted the entire deal at the time and concluded there were zero legal violations or disclosure issues. And when Bang did receive those profits, he took 154.8 billion won and reinvested it directly back into HYBE via capital increase.
Wow. He put the money right back into the company to fuel the growth. He took the risks, the lawyers approved it, and he reinvested the rewards. This DealSite report proves how easily a regulatory agency can distort a narrative by just omitting a few key clauses.
It really does highlight the power of framing.
Exactly. But it brings us to the present day. With Chairman Bang fighting this brutal multi-agency legal war to clear his name, who is actually running the ship?
What is truly fascinating here is how HYBE is adapting for corporate survival. They have executed a strategic pivot to a dual leadership model.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, with Bang under intense media and legal scrutiny, he is deliberately stepping back into the shadows to fight these battles. He's even set his base salary to zero, taking compensation only if the company hits performance metrics.
Wow, zero base salary.
Yeah. Meanwhile, HYBE's CEO, Jaesang is stepping directly into the global spotlight to act as an institutional shield.
We've definitely seen that shift. Jaesang has been everywhere lately. He was just named a professional member of the U.S. Recording Academy, the organization that runs the Grammys.
And that isn't just about prestige, it's geopolitical armor.
Oh, how so?
By embedding a Korean executive deeply into the U.S. music ecosystem, HYBE is making itself an indispensable stakeholder, not just a foreign exporter. If domestic regulators try to tear down HYBE, they aren't just attacking a local agency anymore. They are destabilizing a major partner of the Western music establishment.
That is a brilliantly calculated defense mechanism, and CEO Lee is pushing this agenda aggressively. Recently, he delivered a keynote speech at a major CEO forum in Jeju, stepping in for Bang. And he didn't just give some safe corporate PR speech. He dropped some incredibly harsh truths on the industry.
He did. He presented some really hard, uncomfortable statistics. He warned that Kpop currently accounts for just 4.5% of the global music market.
Only 4.5.
Yeah. Compare that to Western pop at 24.4%, or R&B and hip-hop at nearly 18%. His core argument is that if K-pop wants to survive permanently and avoid fading into obscurity like the golden era of Hong Kong cinema did in the 90s, it cannot rely on just a few mega hits or national pride. It has to become a permanent, institutionalized system.
And that is exactly where his multi-home, multi-label strategy comes in. It's essentially the financial version of having multiple visual centers in an idol group, right?
Yes, that's exactly it.
If one member gets caught in a scandal or has to go to the military, the group doesn't disband because another center simply steps into the spotlight. HYBE is building actual roots in the US, Japan, and Latin America and running multiple labels. So if one group is on hiatus, another is securing an all-kill on the global charts.
Exactly. It is the ultimate diversification of risk. And we saw CEO Lee continue this diplomatic push at the APAC Cultural Dialogue in Gyeongju.
Oh,
He was there alongside executives from SMYG and JYP Entertainment, sitting right next to Korea's Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism. He is actively positioning HYBE as an untouchable pillar of Korea's cultural diplomacy across the Asia-Pacific region.
So let's step back and look at what this all means. We are watching an incredible dual strategy play out in real time. You have the visionary founder, Bang Si-hyuk, fighting a brutal legal war in the background, absorbing the hits and taking a $0 salary to protect the company's image.
yep.
And in the foreground, you have CEO Jaesang sitting with government ministers, joining the Grammy Academy, and pushing a sophisticated global corporate strategy to ensure the music never, ever stops.
It is a masterclass in crisis management. By dividing the labor, letting Bang handle the legal fallout quietly, while Lee acts as the forward-facing diplomat, HYBE is shielding its core operations and its artists from the founder's personal risks. But it raises a massive, vital question for you to consider as we close today's deep dive.
Ooh, what's the question?
If K-pop is truly going to survive as a permanent, institutionalized global system, rather than just a passing cultural trend, can the industry withstand the intense legal, political, and financial warfare currently targeting its biggest architects? When the stadium lights finally go down in 2026, will that BTS comeback be a triumphant return to a stabilized empire, or will it be the ultimate casualty of a boardroom war?
Wow. Think back to those flashing cameras outside the police station, the fans holding their breath in the dark, the engine of the Hallyu wave is being tested like never before, and the whole world is watching to see if the anchor holds. You've been listening to Starscope K-Report, where Eric and Minji bring you the stories shaping K-pop, K-dramas, and the global Hallyu wave. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.